Okay, well, welcome to the last technology services webinar of 2022. We've made it just about a full year here. We've done a bunch of regular webinars for you in technology services coming into December here. And today we're going to be talking about evergreening your technology. We'll talk a little bit more at the end about what's to come in 2023, but the webinar series will be continuing on in the new year. So I'm Andrew Nierenhausen from Technology Services here at YRL. And so let's talk about evergreening your technology. So really that's just a fancy way of saying keeping your technology up to date. In library language, this would mean something more along the lines of weeding your old and worn out technology so that we can replace it with new, safe, and effective technology. Much like my last webinar on Wi-Fi hubs, the discussion today is not going to tell you what you must do, but rather it's going to be more of a discussion about some things to keep in mind when you're approaching your technology over the long term. And at the end of the day, the technology belongs to you, and you and your board will need to make any final decisions about budgeting and spending to replace it. And I should give a little caveat here that this is not going to be like a super high level budgeting workshop, but if you are new to thinking about technology planning, maybe you've been with your library for a few years and you think that it might be time soon to upgrade some technology. This is a bit more of a primer to get you thinking about that stuff, give you some ideas on how to prepare for any technology replacement that you're going to have to do in the near future. So I know it's easy to think that you buy a computer and it should last forever, on paper, or at least like a really long time because it's plastic and metal. You don't think it's gonna fall apart, and it may technically be true. I have a 15-year-old laptop at home that still runs, and I still use it from time to time. But when it comes to your library, it's not quite the same thing. And there are a few reasons for this, and a few reasons that you want to replace that technology over time. So the first one is going to be security. And we will return to security a few times today. It comes up a lot when we're talking about technology in the library. So as your machines start to age, they become more vulnerable. Major developers like Microsoft and Apple, they do make efforts to continue sending out updates and patches to try and keep your machines up to date. But at a certain point, the hardware on your machine might not be compatible with the new updates that are being sent out. So these developers might also move on to new platforms and operating systems. So for example, you might know that Windows 11 has become available. You've probably seen pop-ups for it on your computer. And maybe you have already installed Windows 11 on your home computer. So Microsoft doesn't send out security updates for old operating systems like Windows XP, Windows Vista, and certainly not like Windows 98 anymore. And it's not going to be that many years until they stop sending out updates for Windows 10. We might get 5 more years out of Windows 10. And that means that the computers that aren't being regularly updated with the latest protection are going to become vulnerable to both local and remote cyber attacks. Excuse me. So when a developer finds a major weakness or a vulnerability in their system, they patch it, and that's what those updates are. And that's what's getting when you get a Windows update on your computer and it lets you know that you need to update and restart, it's usually some kind of security fix for your computer. And just as a quick aside, I just want to clarify that we at Yellowhead and Track, we're not ready to move to Windows 11 just yet. It might actually be a few years until we make that move because we do still have support on Windows 10. So don't upgrade any of your library computers to Windows 11. And if you do, or you have, or you accidentally click that upgrade button, please contact us so that we can help you roll back that upgrade. It'll cause disruptions to your workflow if you are using Windows 11 while the rest of the region is using Windows 10. So just let us know if that's something that comes up. So the second reason here is going to be software. And here I should mention that there could be a difference between your public computers and your staff workstations. But either way, software will still be an issue. So every year, computing power increases. And that's hardware. That's the physical components of your computer. New software and programs take advantage of that increased power of computers. So as software becomes more and more demanding, that new software that demands, more computing power is no longer going to work on older computers. This is something that I'm guilty of when it comes to my cell phone, and maybe you have also had this experience or know someone who is like me. I try to hang on to my phone for as long as I can until I think that it's unsafe for security reasons. But it becomes really obvious as my phone gets older. I try to run new apps, and it just doesn't have the power to keep up. The battery starts to drain too quickly. It'll physically heat up, or it'll start crashing from time to time. Um, these same demands apply to your desktop computers. You may find that a computer trying to run a new and more demanding software is going to heat up. You hear those fans spin up, and your computer starts to warm. Those are signs that your computer's working pretty hard. New operating systems like Windows, Microsoft Office, the Polaris ILS, these softwares over time might start to have issues running on older computers. And this kind of ties into our third one, which is user experience, and it's a bit of a less tangible reason here, but I think it's just as important to keep in mind as the other two. While technically your computers may be functional for a long time, there often comes a point where they don't act quite the same way as they did when they were new. So they're slower, maybe they crash from time to time. The most noticeable user experience issue is that your computer might start to get weird quirks. Maybe you know how to deal with it. If you click this or do that, it works. But someone who hasn't used the computer before might have trouble or would be confused by the computer. And maybe you and your patrons put up with this for a little while, but eventually it becomes frustrating to use these machines. And sometimes when this happens, you can extend the life of the machine for a little while. You can have it reformatted or completely wiped, and you can start fresh on that computer. But this will only go so far because of the previous reasons that we've talked about. And if your machines are difficult to use, they're probably going to be used less. So again, this one's a bit less quantifiable, but it is worth keeping in mind. So you see this, and maybe you've decided that you shouldn't keep your computer forever, and you want to get a new computer. So how are you going to go about this? What does this process look like for a library? The best way to work through this is to create a hardware replacement plan. And this can be a really informal plan, something you have in mind for when your computers need to be updated. But it can also be a more formal policy. It could be something that you work on with your board. I think for something like this, it's always better to have your plan in writing in case there are staff changes or there are emergencies. It helps to remove some of the doubt when you aren't quite sure what to do. If you have a major computer emergency, it's nice to just have a written plan that you can fall back on and you don't have to worry about it too much. So the first part of your hardware replacement plan will be deciding when to replace your machines. So is this something that you want to do on a fixed schedule? Maybe every 7 years. Is there another metric that you want to use? The common wisdom on this, and this isn't hard science or anything, but the common wisdom is that a desktop computer is going to last maybe 5 to 7 years before it should be replaced, and a laptop will probably be more like 3 to 5 years. But as computing demands change, so could device lifespan. These aren't concrete timelines, but having an idea and a plan for replacing these devices, it also ensures that you're thinking about it, which is probably the most important thing. So you and your board decide to upgrade your computers every X number of years, but how are you going to budget for this? I think there's sort of three ways that you can do this. The first way is probably the worst one, and anyone who has had to do this would probably agree with me. Excuse me. And that would be doing it all at once. So, the scenario is your computers suddenly fail. You just have to go out and buy all new computers without any warning. Do you know what a new computer costs? Do you know what 5 new computers cost? You probably haven't budgeted for this. And if it's not in the budget, maybe if it's above what you can approve in your budget, you might need board approval, and you might have to make cuts elsewhere in your budget. Because the immediate cost is so high, maybe you buy a less expensive or less effective computer, to try and make things more manageable. But that could also become a problem further down the line if you're buying a cheaper computer and maybe that's not going to last as long. So, you're sort of continuing the issue in that way. So this is definitely the least desirable way to buy computers. And keep in mind, if you don't have a technology plan in place, or if you aren't thinking about your computers, this is probably the most likely outcome. If you hang on to your hardware until it fails completely, and you haven't prepared for that day, then you might have to get new hardware very suddenly to continue. Excuse me, to continue your library operations. The second way, probably more common, is budgeting for a complete replacement. So this would be putting, X amount of dollars from your annual budget into a pool that will be used to purchase all new computers every X amount of years, whatever that is that you decide. You can make some estimates about what you expect computers to cost in your replacement time frame. And if that's something that you're curious about, you can contact us at Technology Services to chat. You can give me a call, or you can email helpdesk at yrl.ab.ca. I don't do a lot of the hardware purchasing, so I'm not going to have any hard numbers for you today. But this is something that we can help you parse out from YRL. And so this way you can budget out a replacement fund for the day when inevitably you have to replace those computers. And the third way is rolling replacements or cyclical replacements, which is pretty much just the budgeting method again, but it allows you to do a little bit at a time. And also to regularly update the oldest parts of your technology collection, which is a good way to do this. So for example, maybe you have 3 public computers and you replace one of them every 2 years. So that puts you on a 6-year replacement plan for those computers. They're always cycling. This is a more regular cost. So you need to budget for a computer every 2 years, but it's also spread out instead of buying 3 computers all at one time. And there's many different ways to plan a rolling replacement. You could do public computers on one timeline and staff computers on another timeline. You could also replace something in your technology collection every year and just keep a standing line in the budget for that technology replacement. And each library is going to have different technology needs that they need to address. So your technology plan, I think a lot of technology plans are going to look different and are going to need to be flexible to support the needs of the library. So I also want to show you, this is a quick mock-up of a capital assets sheet. So this is based on how we organize this kind of information at YRL. So it's a document that you can create to keep track of your technology needs over time. And this is just an excerpt from a larger document where we track other YRL assets like our vans and our building infrastructure. So this doesn't just have to be limited to technology. I'm not going to get into that larger budgeting question today, but just know that that's a tool that you could use for other budgeting as well. So you can see that we keep track of the initial cost of the items, when they were purchased, when we expect to replace them, and what the estimated replacement costs are adjusted for inflation. A number of these are also on a replacement cycle. So you can see in the item description there that we keep track of how many are going to be replaced each year or over what time frame. So even having a simple document like this can save you a lot of headache when it comes time to make these decisions. So I just wanted to show you briefly what this kind of document could look like for you. So there's also a few other technology issues that may arise around evergreening and upgrading your technology, and also a bit of cybersecurity and digital hygiene. Again, cybersecurity seems to come up for pretty much every technology topic we talk about here. So here's an example. One of your board members or a community member would like to donate one of their computers to the library. This is a very generous thing for someone to do, but before that computer goes on the network, and by that I mean before that computer is plugged into the internet at your library, you need to contact us at Technology Services. So that machine will need to be sent in to be reformatted and installed with Windows and whatever other standard software gets put on one of your computers. And the reason that I highlight this is because we don't know where that computer has been or what networks it's been connected to. Maybe the community member got a virus at some point in the past, and by plugging that computer into our shared network, it could become a risk to our region and our track partners. So just check in with us to make sure that the computer is up to date and secure before we put it on the network. And I bring this up because I think that's not an uncommon thing when libraries are looking for new technology, that they can get those from people in their community who are willing to share. So that's just one example. And another thing here is recycling. It's kind of an interesting question that you might not have thought about. When you're getting a new set of computers for your library, what do you do with the older computers? Well, if you are worried about any security issues, because those computers might have personal information or organizational information, you can send those to YRL. We do technology recycling for free, so you don't have to bring them to an eco center or a dump. You can just send them to us. And then you don't have to worry that some other person is going to get a hold of those computers and get any information off them. We'll dispose of them in a secure way, and it's at no cost to you. So just letting you know that that is a service that exists through YRL. So while we have been discussing many options that are available to you and ways to think about evergreening your technology, I think we should end on this question. Is all of this just a recommendation, or is technology evergreening a necessity? In a way, it's both. So while it is entirely your choice in when technology needs to be replaced and how that's going to happen. All technology will eventually fail and need to be replaced. So if you understand that, then it makes a lot of sense to do a bit of preparation in advance so that you aren't caught unaware when the technology does fail. So I'll leave you with that thought. But please let me know if you have any questions. If you have any thoughts or concerns, you can put those in the chat and I'll see if I can answer them for you now. Otherwise, you can always direct your questions to us in technology services at helpdesk@yrl.ab.ca, or you can email me or give me a call if you want to talk directly. And it doesn't look like there's any questions coming into the chat here. Okay, so if there's nothing coming up, I think that's it for today. This is a bit of a quick one. So thanks for joining us and for any of you who are watching this recording after the fact. I really appreciate you taking the time to come to these sessions. It's been one full year of technology services webinars, and we are going to keep them going in the new year, as I mentioned at the start. So if there are any topics that you would like me to cover or you are interested in hearing about, please give me a shout. We will be back in what I would assume probably late January or early February, but we will send out notifications in the newsletter and also on YRL Pub. So thanks again. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the new year.